for tuning in. I wanted to remind you of our Road to 1,000 Subscribers giveaway that we have going on our YouTube channel. If you subscribe and have a public profile, you'll be entered to win a free RX Smart Gear original jump rope. You'll get to pick the pattern of the handles, the color and weight of the cable, and you'll be getting one of the best-selling, best-performing jump ropes out there. Every time we hit a new century mark with the number of subscribers to our channel, we'll randomly select a new winner. And our friend Dave Newman is going to throw in a little something extra for each winner. So a special thanks to our sponsor, RX Smart Gear, to Dave Newman for being such a great partner, and to you for being a loyal listener. Good luck, and I hope you are our next winner.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I wanted to talk to you about our new sponsor, Element 26. They are an innovative company producing lots of products around the CrossFit, strongman, powerlifting space. They have weightlifting belts, they have knee sleeves, they have thumb tape. They have these cool little straps that go around the bars when you're trying to attach a bar to the rig and maybe using it for low bar work, like pull-ups for little kids, or some modifications for like bar muscle ups when you're trying to teach someone to do them. And you know how you wrap those rubber bands around the rig and the J hook to kind of keep everything straight? Well, they've made straps for that. And they're straps kind of like the straps you use for rings. They have a really secure system on it, and you can wrap around the bar and keep that nice and secure. I love their innovation. Their product development team is top notch, and they're just coming up with really different ideas for our space. So check them out at element26.co. That's element26.co, and tell them Kat sent you.
Well, everybody, we are here with a special friend, Ashley Cotler. You might know her as the husband to Underdogs coach Justin Cutler, but she has a lot of things going on in her life separately from all of that. And we want to dive in and meet her a little bit and learn what's going on with her. And the first thing I just want to talk to you about is our title sponsor is RX Smart Gear. We have been with them for over a year now, and you just signed a deal with them yourself. And so I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So Dave is a great guy. He and Justin have obviously been in communication for years. We actually finally got to meet him in person, or I did. He and his wife stopped by and they dropped off a bag of goodies for all the athletes. And yeah, it was just fun to get to know them in person. And it's kind of funny because a couple weeks ago, there was a huge box that was delivered and it was sitting by our dining room table. So finally I'm like, okay, well, Justin, if you're not going to open it, I'm going to open it. So it's like some new jump ropes and I've been doing, so I'm pre and postnatal certified. I do a lot of programming, consulting, and support for moms who are, trying to be in shape throughout their pregnancy and especially postpartum. So I make like a lot of videos for my moms and stuff, just talking about different movements and posture and all that kind of stuff. And I was just telling Justin how a lot of our gym equipment is still at Carrie's house in her garage. So I was like, I got to pick up a box. I got to pick up some lighter dumbbells. I just need a couple things. So anyway, this box had been sitting in our dining room for about 3-4 days. And I finally open it, and so it's like jump rope and gear and stuff for the athletes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's an air box in here. I had seen it, I had seen them publicizing it. I was like, this is amazing, because I do a lot of like elevated glute bridges and like stuff off of boxes with my postpartum moms. We play around a lot with like levels and stuff and variances to make movements and progressions more difficult. Well, I mean, when you're an early mom, you a lot of times will have like pretty bad like wrist issues just because you're holding the baby or breastfeeding or holding a bottle. So I'm like, this box is great because instead of it being hard, it's got that cushion. So it's going to feel much better on your wrists. And so anyway, I like blew the thing up. I was like, I know I'll have to bring it to the gym for the athletes to play on, but I'm like, I'm just going to blow it up and kind of play around with it for a week. So I was doing all that stuff. I was doing my elevated glute bridges, which again felt great on my back because it wasn't this hard piece of lumber, digging into me. So I was just like posting and tagging RX Smart Gear on stuff. And all of a sudden Dave reached out to me and he was like, oh my gosh, I love how creative you're being with the box. And I love all these movements that you're doing. And I'm like, I always do them. It's a big, huge help for all my postpartum moms. And he was like, well, I got to be honest. It was actually a mistake that we sent that box to you. He goes, we had planned on sending you the air mat. And I was like, oh, and he goes, but Ashley, this was the best mistake we could have ever made. Because he said, we're learning all these fun new movements that with this piece of equipment that we can have. And then he started talking that, he wants to kind of like develop tape some movements and things like that so that they kind of have it in their archives so that people can just see all of the different ways that they can use their equipment. And I was like, oh gosh, I'd love to do all that. I'm pretty much doing it anyway. And there's just so much stuff that you can do on the air box and the air mat. And I think like, obviously as we get older and our joints hurt more, I've been doing box jumps and double unders, and I don't even remember the last time I've been doing those, just because they're just not that comfortable, right? And and since the air box and the air mat, I'm like, oh, my joints feel so much better on this stuff. I can do some jumps. It doesn't hurt on my back or my ankles or my knees or my wrists as much. So it's been really fun to kind of add in some of those old movements that I hadn't done in a while and have them feel a lot better than they once did. So anyway, long story short, well, actually, it's not a short story. It's ended up being a long story. Like the perfect mistake of him sending this box. So then we kind of started collaborating a little bit. And he's just like, the postpartum, we have a guy that comes every other Friday and does live workouts for us, just to kind of, again, demonstrate what our equipment does. But he goes, postpartum moms, he's like, I've been seeing what you've been posting, and you kind of been saying like, once postpartum, always postpartum, which is true. You're always postpartum once you have kids. He's like, I feel like it just really resonates a lot to a huge community that kind of gets forgotten. And so every other Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I just do like a quick little 15-20 minute postpartum mom workout with some of their gear. And I do it live on their Instagram. We had our first one this last Friday. And it's just fun. It's fun. It's just, no matter what age your kids are, it's like just really, really great work for your really inner deep core, pelvic floor, and all that kind of stuff, which really and truly anyone and everyone can benefit from, not just postpartum moms. But it is just a really great, accessory to kind of start adding in and around to your workouts, which has been fun.
And this isn't your first foray into the postpartum workout thing. You did power abs for moms. You did some other things like that. So, and you mentioned you're certified. Where does that certification come from, and why did you find that necessary?
So, like my very first certification was an ACE certification, American Council of Exercise. So I'm certified personal trainer, and I've kept that up throughout all the years. That was my very, very first one, just because at the time I was doing a lot of theater and traveling around the country, and the ACE certification was like the most widely nationally accepted. So I was, and which I traveled around a lot regionally doing shows. And I figured like, it would be very easy for me to pop into a gym, pick up a couple clients, do some flexible work on the side while I was performing. That was kind of like the goal of initially. And then Justin cornered me at the water fountain, started winking at me. Long story short, here we are 6 years today, married. With
yes, happy anniversary.
Thank you. And we opened up the CrossFit gym. So it was then that I got my CrossFit level 1, CrossFit level 2, and CrossFit Kids, just because we really wanted to build up our community. And we knew when we were going to get married that having children, was the goal, and that we wanted to do that right away. So I was like, you know what, why don't I go and get my pre and postnatal certification, just pretty much for my own base knowledge. So I did. I got pre and postnatal certified right before, I think about a year before I got pregnant, actually. And then, I kind of was my own guinea pig with it, throughout my pregnancy with IV and afterwards. Afterwards, I definitely jumped into stuff way too fast, way too hot and heavy. And I didn't really understand how bad that was until about 11 months postpartum, because I started having major back issues. And I just, I didn't really take the time to really do the slow, step-by-step, methodical, deep pelvic floor and core work that I needed to. So I really honestly hadn't healed, really, I don't feel 100% until after Jax. And I really kind of like did the slower step-by-step process. And so anyway, as I was kind of my own guinea pig, there were several members that then started getting pregnant and stuff too. So then I just started like, guiding, supporting, programming, personal training them throughout their pregnancies. And it was never like a major focus. It was just kind of like a really fun add-on and like a new way to kind of help and benefit moms. Every pregnancy is totally different. Every postpartum situation is different. I mean, honestly, like even everyone's four walls are different, right? Like you might have a kid that sleeps, you might not. You might have a lot of help, you might not. You might put your kid in full-time daycare, you might not. So when I program for clients, you have to take in all considerations. How much is this mom sleeping? How is her eating? How is her home? Like, is she getting help? Is she not? Because you always want, especially during a pregnancy, you want fitness to support you, your well-being, your health, and the pregnancy. Number one, it's not a time to like 1 rep max and go run a marathon. And I mean, people have, don't get me wrong, but it's not time to really start anything new. So with that, it's kind of like each personal household, you kind of have to take in all of the little teeny tiny nuances. If someone was injured, if they had back issues before getting pregnant, a lot of times, fixing specific little movement patterns so that it doesn't escalate during the pregnancy as you're gaining weight and the baby's getting bigger and pulling on certain things. So there's a lot of like little tiny nuances that it's really difficult to take on a big chunk of people because, case by case, it is, and things can all change in a day or two. I mean, Kat, like you feel great one day and then you look at your shoes and you're like, nope, I'm not bending over today.
Yeah. And it makes a group dynamic really difficult too. I mean, unless you're doing like a super basic, like mommy and me 6-week postpartum, like hanging out and breathing, everyone's at a different place and had a different experience. So
yeah,
it makes sense that it's more private.
And yeah, private is always just kind of the best. I mean, it's really tough to just make a one-stop shop template and send it off to people and go because it's also hard for me to be like, I don't know your movement patterns. I don't know, without seeing people and how they move, they might be possibly making something worse,
Sure.
that's doing them because of a form thing or something like that too.
Yeah, it's very similar to like just an on-ramp for people that haven't exercised before, right? Or getting into CrossFit, you're not going to just throw them into class necessarily. At least I don't, you need to sort of work with them and get them up to a certain point before you can throw them in. So.
And I've had moms that were, never worked out ever and wanted a workout program for their pregnancy. I've had, very high level athletes come to me. And so obviously their training modalities and loads are going to be very, very different. And same thing postpartum. Like I've had a couple moms who were incredibly fit, super, super athletes, but then pretty much, something happened like where they had to go on bed rest or, there was a situation where they had to really pull it back. So postpartum, we had to really pull it way back too and start really, really slow to get ourselves back up to a spot. Just depending on how that tail end of their pregnancy was, how their labor and delivery was, I've got moms who have had C-sections who bounce back faster and better than some moms who have had, it just totally depends. Yeah. So
I have an interesting question. You were certified before you were pregnant, and then you went through it practically.
Yep.
How much changed in your delivery from the theoretical science that you learned to then going through it yourself and delivering that message?
So, I mean, the nice thing for me was like knowledge is power, right? So it was nice for me to know and read like why you don't do isometric holds when you're pregnant, because your blood pressure is already elevated. And when you're doing things like pause at the bottom squats or bar hangs and things like that, you're elevating your blood pressure even more. And it doesn't really make sense. That you should always continue to be able to breathe through exercises because your blood density thickens, right? There's a whole bunch of science behind, why to do and not do certain things. It's interesting. I've actually taken the course now twice. And the first time I took it, it was much more conservative than it is now. So now they're kind of saying, the first time I took it, it was like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And the second time around, it's much more like, well, if you were previously doing this, do it. There's now new research that say if you redline, it's not an issue, but we don't suggest it because there's not ample research for someone who consistently redlines or stays at that high level of intensity. So it is nice to kind of see how society is really accepting more of like moms wanting to be in shape, and how like the guidelines have kind of loosened up a little bit. But again, it always depends. It goes back to the mom. It goes back to her health history. It goes back to how she was working out previously, her previous injuries. I'm always still more, listen, your number one priority is creating a life, and your body is working hard enough. There's more than enough time to like PR your strict handstand push-ups if you want. So, and then there are different times of your pregnancy where you're going to feel like you can push it more and less. And then there are certain times of your pregnancy where you feel like you can push it, but if you do, you kind of suffer for the next 3 days because you're just totally wiped. So it's a very fine-tuned process, I guess, that's always changing, week to week. Like there were weeks where, I would get on the rower and be like, nope. And then there would be days I'd go out for a run and I'd be like, nope. But then like a week or two later, totally fine. So sometimes it just depends on how the baby's positioned, how things are. I guess my best advice for moms is, and one of the biggest takeaways I think is, it is actually safer to not start working out at all during your pregnancy than it is to start the process and work out and then stop. Because so it's good because like for me it just was like, okay, well, this is just a motivator. This is like this is my motivation to keep showing up to the gym and to keep, because this is all so much better for my baby. So what happens is in the beginning, when you're used to working out, your blood density increases and your body gets so ridiculously efficient at moving moving blood through your system. And it's kind of like extra, right? So like when you're exercising stuff, your blood is moving through your body, you're able to get more energy and nutrients and oxygen to the baby, and the baby gets used to it. It's like a pipeline of like deliciousness, right? And then what happens if all of a sudden you stop that point blank? It's like the baby gets used to all this pipeline and now has to kind of start to get used to getting by on less. Does that make sense? It's the same thing. Like if we're like running every day or working out every day and then we just stop cold turkey, right? Like, so the biggest benefit is to just keep going. And one thing that I always did was I always just chose what days I was going to work out, no matter what. I chose my 5 days that I was going to work out every week. And those were the 5 days I would work out. Now, of course, there are days you get up and you're just like, you're like moving. And honestly, on those days, I would get on like the stationary bike and I would legitimately pedal this fast for like 20 minutes, but it still got me to the gym. It still got me doing something. It still, it just kept me going, and that's super important when you're pregnant. And then, all of the benefits for the mom and the baby are just enormous. It's for your postpartum recovery, like, I don't know how they figure this out, but they say like kids' test scores are much higher. Just their ability to adapt to the outside world is faster and better. Their APGAR test scores are better. There's just so many benefits to it.
So being so into this aspect of fitness, how blown away were you with what Annie Thorsdottir pulled off?
I mean, honestly, her and Kara Saunders also too. Both of them. But Annie, like her baby was just over a year.
Not even.
Not
I think
even.
like 10 months old.
So really and truly, like, how they always say like the 9 months in, 9 months out thing. And then to be doing what she did when that baby was 10 months, it is just shocking. It's unbelievable. She had to have had an unbelievable person, helping her and guiding her through like every step of her postpartum recovery, because just the fact that she was able to like maintain and regain that strength is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's really shocking, and she is undoubtedly a superhero, because I need normal people to know that that is not normal.
Right. Like she's definitely the exception to the rule, right? I mean, don't expect to do that.
Because how many other high caliber athletes like either couldn't or weren't able to bounce back like that? And I hate to even say bounce back, because every body is so different, like depending on how you carry and how the delivery goes and how your body responds. And again, like how much you're able to sleep after postpartum to be able to actually heal and recover. Like that is huge. And those are like main takeaways. Like, I don't know what her postpartum was like. I don't know if she was able to get tons of sleep, have great nutrition, was able to really like take her time. I mean, I don't think she really was able to take her time. I think I heard one, I don't remember if it was her, Cara Saunders, that said that they would have liked to have just taken a little bit more time. And that is one consistency theme that I hear with moms all the time. There's so much pressure on us to like get our bodies back and, like go back to lifting exactly how you were. And undoubtedly your body changes forever. There are things that change in your body that will never quite be the same. And you're very, very lucky if you can really get back to a version or a better version of yourself. Like that's unbelievable, but it takes an insane amount of discipline, and your circumstances, so if you're one of those
And I
people,
think too, your psyche, right? Like you might
absolutely.
not, I mean, emotionally you change so much when you become a parent and you become a mother, depending on what your experience is, that
Yep.
maybe your wants and desires pre-pregnancy aren't even the same anymore. Your priorities are different.
Totally.
So for her, it was really like all the stars aligned
Yep.
perfectly,
Yep.
along with genetics and support and, whatever magic dust she put on everything too.
And that's even one thing that's difficult for me to like remind myself of, like, listen, I am so happy with where I am and what my body has done, especially over the year of COVID and everything else and all the changes that our family made. And it's just like, you just have to keep being patient with yourself and giving yourself grace, because like if there is a specific goal there, and when your kids are little, like you're in the thick of it, it's really tough. And to just, I always assure people, like, don't worry, it will happen. It might not be like this day, this year, but it's going to happen. And I think, everyone's on such totally different timelines, but it's really, I mean, I really hope when people see Annie that they're not like, I'm going to do that, that they're just like, that they boost her up and say, this is an incredible human being. And let's like look and just be in amazement of how remarkable she and her journey were, and say like mine and my journey may be similar, may be totally different. I mean, everyone's journey is totally different, but I just hope like we see someone like Annie and are like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get back there. I'm going to push myself so hard. And then all of a sudden, because I mean, even I felt that pressure. I'm like, I'm pre and postnatal certified. I own a gym. I have to get my body back. And I remember I was 6 or 7 weeks postpartum. I had the okay to clear from my doctor. My first workout back, I do not suggest this to anyone, was a 30-minute EMOM of, I think it was 7 wall balls, 7 burpees, and 7 toes to bar. And I looked back at myself and I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? And everything felt great. Everything felt fine. I was able to do everything. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, and then 11 months later, so, like, even though you may get your pre-baby body weight back or whatever, sometimes it's not worth it when you can't bend over to pick your baby up. And I was in that position. Or when your shoulder is so sore that, you can't even hang from a bar. It's not, you have to evaluate like what's worth it in your world, and you will get there. It's just everyone's timeline is different. So Annie is unbelievable and should definitely be glorified and praised, but not compare yourself to,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Just like I wouldn't compare myself to Matt Frazier or Rich Froning in my workouts.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, let's hope not. Speaking of
Um,
babies, where are your babies right now?
They're in school. They're in
I
school. That's
expected to see a little Jax running around.
yeah, he's a year and a half now, and he is, boy, oh boy, he's all boy, and he's
Mhm.
tap dancing on the island of the kitchen, and he's a handful, but he is so fun. He's so fun. And Ivy's doing cartwheels and handstands everywhere and on every apparatus she can possibly find. So we should probably
So
be
you guys
living
still making cookies?
in a padded house. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's mine and
Still
Ivy's
doing
thing.
the
We
cookies.
always make cookie dough. That's our little vice.
Good.
A couple of days.
so how do you balance all of that? You know, you're doing this thing with RX Marketer now. We're going to get into your financial stuff that you do, but you help out with Underdogs. You have
Yep.
all that you're opening up a gym someday, and you have another gym in New York still that you're kind of owning, right?
Yep. Are we still running?
All this going on in your life,
Yeah.
and you have 2 kids that are very active.
Yeah. So, here's the thing, like you listen to different things, you try to not get in your head about it when you're just like focus on one thing so you can put 100% of your energy on it. And if you do too many things, you're spreading yourself thin and you can't do everything justice. And really and truly, like, I feel like with my background growing up, I grew up in Wisconsin, go Packers, own part of the team. Yes. My parents owned a fishing campground. When I was 12 years old, I started giving tours at a winery, at a little local winery. So it's always around people. And I worked construction for my dad in the summer times. So I went to college for musical theater. I moved out to New York, not knowing anyone. Met Justin, opened up a gym, and I've always felt that I've kind of been like a jack of all trades. And I never really knew. I was always kind of frustrated because I'm like, well, where does this get me? Right? Jack of all trades and master of none. And honestly, like through it all, I feel like my biggest learning experience with everything is how good I am at relating to people. And I only attribute that to my very diverse past of everything that I've done and all of the different people that I've met along the way. And I think like being a jack of all trades helps me really balance everything, because I think every single time I have put like 100% of my attention and energy in one, I feel like there's all these other little pieces that are not getting utilized, and I don't really feel really fully fulfilled, if that makes sense. So I've always kind of, with Justin, I've always kind of like gone into the pieces of whatever gaps need to be filled is kind of like where I'll just fall into place. And if I don't know how to do something, I just kind of take my time, figure it out. Like that's kind of like the Midwest, Wisconsin, grow up. If you don't know how to do something, you roll up your sleeves and you figure it out and you do it, and that's been like, especially through this COVID year, because we've just had to do an unbelievable amount of learning, like just how to make a business online and how to talk to people. And, we always feel like our biggest benefit is being in front of people, like actually in front of people. We love being in and around people. So how do you transfer who you are on a technical media world, and I'm really proud of us for kind of like really adapting and figuring that out. But it's tough. I mean, there was definitely, especially throughout this last year, it's like, I don't want to learn something else new. I just want to like sit on the couch and be a mom today. And it's like, there were a lot of days where I was getting burnt out because it was like, I was trying to feed the kids breakfast and answering emails and fixing someone's, Stripe account for Underdogs because they want to cancel their account. So there was this one time when Justin came home and he was like, wow, I'm really overwhelmed. And rightfully so, right? He was getting a bunch more athletes that were going to be starting. And it was a really tough decision, but I was like, why don't we we already put Ivy in school 3 days a week. And I was like, why don't we just put Jackson 2 days a week and give ourselves just quiet, uninterrupted time to actually be able to focus on one thing. So we did that. And I actually started, I like to periodically listen to like good little podcasts, just good positive people that recommend them to me and stuff like that. I'll listen to them. And I listened to this one called, he talked about that Deerdick guy. He talked about optimizing, trying to optimize as many systems in your life to make it as easy as possible. And so I think I've always been like a very type A and organized person, but really and truly like feeling less guilty about putting Jackson to school for those 10 hours a week, with Ivy. And it really just gives me a couple of hours of clear focus where I can say, okay, itemize this, put this piece here. Honestly, the hardest element is Justin, because there's always a last minute, well, I got to run to the gym because Wadapalooza qualifiers are right now. So then it's like shuffling around. But honestly, like that's kind of what keeps life fun and exciting. And I'd be lying if I would say it's always easy, and it's not. I definitely get burnt out. But you just find, you find the moments where you give yourself a break when you have to, so that you're a better mom to those moments, and that you're, a better business partner on those moments, and that, you can feel like you again. Cause it's very easy to like get so bogged down with things that you're just not a happy person to anyone. So I think like first and foremost is either listening to things, and listen, when I listen to things, I'm usually folding laundry, doing dishes. I'm just naturally a multitasker. My mom is, she's like the Tasmanian devil running circles around me. As efficient as I think I am, that woman is, it's bonkers what she can accomplish in a 2-hour time frame. But I think, everyone's like, oh, self-care and love yourself and all. And yet it's so easy to say, but like when you're in the thick of it, it's like, it's sometimes just impossible. It's, you guys both know you have kids. And so I think it's like, it's turning those little tiny self-care moments into doing it like with Ivy, or sitting Jax on the counter and having him make a batch of banana bread with me. And though it's frustrating because it takes 3 times as long and it makes a 6 times bigger mess, like you see him smile and you're just like, you know what, that's what matters. And I think to like really going back and really figuring out what matters is what the most important thing is, and kind of like setting your life up and around that.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't realize is, until maybe now, is that, Justin is on the rise as a coach in the CrossFit world, right? Carry podiums, he gets more athletes, people keep signing up. Now he has an online format, blah, blah, blah. You're not just his wife, you're his business partner.
Oh yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to support all that.
Yep.
It gets done by you.
Yep. Or just like even like when there's like a last minute business call pops up, right? It's like, okay, kids, we're going to the park. Let's get out of the house. Yeah. And like it's, when you marry the right person, when in times of turmoil and challenge, that like they always rise to the occasion. And, obviously, we've all been married now for, you guys have been married a lot longer than I have, but, when the going gets tough, is that person in it to win it, and always going to elevate up to the place that you need. And with Justin, he always does, yes, we get frustrated with little things here and there. But that's normal. That's common. And I'm just, looking back on the last like year and a half, it's like, I'm just so proud of everything. Like, I'm just excited that his name and his brand is finally taking off, because this is something that I've kind of really been in his ear about for a really long time. I've been pushing him for a long time, and really and truly the pandemic hit, and it was a good, uncomfortable push for the two of us. It's forced a lot of these things to happen, and it's forced us to like, push ourselves and to develop this and to really get it going. And it was a lot more daunting this time with 2 young kids, you know, because it's like, do we have the energy to do it again? Can we start up from scratch again? But I just think like when you're older and you know, you just ask for help, you know, from everyone. That's always been a really hard thing for me. Just asking for help, surrounding yourself with great people, you know, adding a few more people into the pie to like make things easier and better and more efficient. And I think like, you know, my biggest mindset change, like with the gym, is right now I could look at it and be like, wow, I don't have any more time in a day. How am I going to go teach classes? How am I going to open a gym? And it's like, instead of letting those feelings and and all of that work seem daunting, it's like it's more opportunity. It's more opportunity for us to help people. And that is the platform that we have always been the happiest on, and that we have always been the most excited about, and that we have always like been the most successful with. You know, it's just again, it's another growing opportunity. If we put all of the right people in the right places, it's not going to be like stressful and weighing us down. It's just going to be taking advantage of more opportunities and being able to reach out and help more people. So I think that's what's really exciting about it.
Yeah, and during this pandemic, if people didn't hear our interviews with Justin, like you guys had to make the decision to move from your home in New York City to Las Vegas. Just
Yeah.
and the reason was just to sustain your business.
Yeah.
Now,
So that week of March, the week that the world shut down, and then the pandemic hit, our business was shut down that week, and I gave birth to our son Jax. That all happened in the same week. Which still like it's funny. It's still crazy saying that, you know. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, it's crazy. And we didn't know how long Dynamics would be shut down for. 100% of our income was coming from Dynamics because obviously we both, you know, I did private clients and classes and he did classes. Without knowing how long we'd be shut down for, the only way to salvage the business was to cut our living expenses. Otherwise, we looked at each other and we said, we're going to just burn right through all of our savings if we stay here and wait this out. And man, oh man. So we made the decision early. Jax was 3 months old and we were driving across the country with 2 cars, 2 kids, 6 days. And actually the drive across the country was probably the easiest part in all of it. So yeah. Yeah,
so you get to Vegas and your life changes pretty much.
totally.
So
Yeah. And it was, sorry, go ahead.
I'll let you tell the story.
No, I was just going to say, you know, you move to a different place and you know, the first thing we want to do is develop a community and open up a gym and stuff. And you can't because, you know, COVID. So there's nowhere really you can go. There's a lot of places out here you can go because we were outside all the time. But I mean, like, in terms of like meeting people and trying to open a gym, it was impossible because it didn't make a lot of sense to open a gym when everything was only 20% capacity, you know. So yeah, like settling in and getting out here. So what we did was we took a really long, hard look at our finances. Obviously, we had some investments, and we were just kind of like, okay, well, one of our very good friends, Josh Plosker, who owns Invictus Boston, he was like, why don't you just have a couple conversations with one of my really good friends who owns this wealth management company called Beck Bode. And so we're like, okay, you know, so we got on the phone with him and we talked to him and, you know, kind of explained our predicament. And we're like, you know, we really don't know when we're going to have, you know, a stable income again, when we're going to, you know, this is what we're doing. Ashley's doing pre and postnatal programming. Justin's doing his programming at the time. You know, we want to open a gym. We don't really know the timeline with how the world is right now. So he had a whole bunch of conversations. We kind of explained out our short-term goals, our long-term financial goals to him. And he took a look at all of our previous investments and stuff and was like, well, this one kind of makes sense, but this one doesn't make a whole lot of sense because of blah, 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 blah. And then he really just like laid out, it was literally a foundations class for finances. And it was super important for us because, you know, our household, again, our 4 walls is totally different than everyone else's, you know, and it's the same thing. So he pretty much developed an individualized program of finances for our family. And he was like, well, if this is, if you guys want to buy a house within 3 to 5 years, this is what you should keep in your savings right now. He's like, let's start putting this much, toward your investments monthly. And the goal is to get it up to this much a month monthly so that we can allocate it to the college fund, to the retirement fund, to, Ashley get a massage and maybe her nails done fund every once in a while. I was like, ooh. So he really laid down a really simple plan. And then I think also a really important thing is he really just educated us on it. There was this book that I had read called Dancing with the Analysts, which if anyone listening wants a free copy, it was really the first thing that I had read because I never knew anything about investing or anything really. And the book was written by the owner's mentor, by Ben's mentor. And he worked under him for years. And it's the strategy that they live and breathe and have built their entire company off of. And reading it, I was like, and seeing how Justin's athletes have progressed. Every single athlete that Justin has ever touched that has stayed with him and loyal and consistent with him has just grown leaps and bounds. And so when I read this strategy and understood literally their programming template, essentially, and understanding why they choose to make the strategy and everything, I was starting to really able to see the parallels between fitness and finances. And I was really able to educate myself and be like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Here's your baselines. Here's what you want to grow to. Here's what you eventually want to get to. And so when I read that book and all of it finally made sense and not in an overwhelming, daunting, crazy way, we switched all of our finances over to them. And shortly thereafter, Ben was like, Ash, you have a really, really great story. And he's like, my company. So one of the owners, both owners actually played college sports. Jim played college football and Ben played college baseball and then went on to play it professionally. And so just the base of their company, they're very, very, very like family, fitness, and finances are super important in their lives. And they all CrossFit. Actually, Carrie and Tola, Kelsey, they all do their finances through Beck Bode also. They're just a great group of people. And throughout it all, we got to know each other really well. I came out to Vegas to obviously meet Carrie and us in person. And, Ben was like, we would love, love, love to have an office in Vegas someday. We would love to like expand our reach and try to help as many people, in the fitness realm as we can. And he goes, what do you think about, just starting conversations with people and telling your story? And here I'm like, I love talking to people, and again, it's like another way that I can connect with people and mine and Justin's goal obviously is to still open our gym and build our Vegas network, which I'm really excited about. And this has just kind of given us another way to kind of build our network even more and in turn reach out and help as many people as possible. Growing up, I never talked about money. I never knew what my parents were doing with their money. And during the pandemic, we're just kind of like, we need help, And so I'm not a financial advisor. I don't want to be a financial advisor. I just literally want to like, my role with Beck Bode is just really starting the conversations with people who are kind of afraid to not know what questions to ask. If, any financial advisor, if you sit down, there are some key basic questions that you should know the answers to with your money that I didn't even know when I first started out. And I'm learning more about it every day, which is really fun. And it's like, kind of a new little niche that I'm learning about, but ultimately it's just helping people, with Dynamics, our motto was change your fitness, change your life. And I think anyone who has done CrossFit, that has been their motto also, because it has changed their life for the positive in some way, shape, or form. And now that we changed our finances, it's really like changed our future and has taken like a big burden and a big stress off of our lives, because it's finally able to be like, okay, this has a plan. This has an organized strategy. and this is why and how it's going to grow and build. So I think like when we switched our finances over, you would ask like, how do I not go crazy doing everything? I mean, for me, money has always been like probably my biggest stressor. And so it has been a huge breath of fresh air being able to now, not worry all the time about that it's got a game plan, that it's going to grow, and that we essentially have a personal trainer who's dictating our finances.
So I know when you promote this, you ask people, are you financially fit?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way to kind of combine the two, of the financial thing and the fitness thing together, in a way that us fitness people understand.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm still learning about it too. So a lot of it is just breaking it down to layman's terms, right? Like even in CrossFit, what is the first thing, you don't go and do an overhead squat. That's not the first thing you do, right? You learn the basics of how to do an air squat and the correct, form and function and reason behind it, right? And that's why I love CrossFit, right? Because you educate people on why they move and how to move better and the benefits of moving better. And this was actually the exact same approach. It was like I took a foundations class on finances, really. And they walked me through it, and they listened to the strategy or the in-home, our situation, and they executed a game plan, wrote out our training plan, right? And then it's up to us to execute it,
Yeah,
So
I think it really fits well too with, we talk about athletes and how, their earning potential it's just nebulous, right? I mean, you're just kind of not sure where the earnings are coming from, and sponsorships and things like that. And you hear a lot about professional athletes sort of pissing their money away, or, not investing it properly and things like that. When you were talking about the foundations of it, it reminded me of the phrase, trust the process, right? Like we tell our athletes that all the time, like, I'm your coach, I know what's good for you. Like, this is how we're going to do it. It might seem slow. You just have to sit back and let it work. It sounds like that's sort of the same thing with the financial planning as well. You just have to trust the process.
Exactly. You have to be consistent, right? And you have to be patient.
Right.
I think one of the downfalls with technology is that we want instant gratification for everything, right? And if you look at the things that matter the most in your life, relationships, jobs, whatever it may be, those things all took time and effort, consistency, and patience. And excuse me, I just love like the parallels that these two worlds have, and I think the cool thing about it too is like, right, you may have your retirement plan set up, you may have, your investments all lined up, but it's just like, well, okay, you also mastered handstand push-ups. Okay, great. Now can you do freestanding handstand push-ups? Now can you do ring handstand push-ups? There are ways to always make you fitter, right? There are ways to make you, and so it's like, even if you have the best laid out plans, there might be certain little like tricks, nuances, substitutions that you can do that might make you financially fitter, right? So it's cool. It's been really fun learning about it and being more educated about it. And like I said, like if I can help anyone on that platform, I really feel like I'm one of those like old fashioned like phone operators where it's like, oh, you need the electrician? Okay. Oh, but what? That makes me so happy. Like I love being able to connect people with the right people, because it's hard for us to ask questions. It's hard for us to ask help. And it's like, if you know people who kind of know the best of their specific, I want to guide people to the people who are the masters of their trade, because the masters of their trade for a reason. So let's put you there so that you can be guided and programmed by that person so that you can reach the full potential of what you need and want.
Yeah. I like it. You're starting a little empire out there. It's good. Good stuff. Hey, we've seen it done other places. There's no reason why you guys can't do the same thing. I think it's awesome for you. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, we talked about, you and Justin being in business together, and, there's big news in the CrossFit world about Ricky Gerard coming back. And we've heard, Ricky's side of the story. We've heard Justin's side of the story in terms of how they got connected. Clearly you had to have had a hand or an opinion or, some guidance or advice for Justin in this decision-making process. So why don't you give us sort of your quick perspective on how everything went down and how things are going to move forward?
Well, it's interesting because, Justin had like been rumbling a little bit to me. He was like, a long time ago, he's like, well, Ricky has like one more year. He's like, he might be kind of fun to, Justin likes a little spice in life, as you can tell. um, and so he kind of talked to me, and it was just kind of something in passing here and there. And then he had done a podcast with Coffee Pods and Wads, and that was this first one when he had said, oh, if there was anyone you could coach, who would you coach? That was the question. And he said, I think it would be fun to train Ricky. And Ricky actually just kind of listened to it on a fluke. And he previously had been thinking about reaching out to Justin and never had before. And then when he saw that, it motivated him to reach out to Justin. And I remember when he first reached out to him, Justin was equally excited, but also cautious, as he should be. And he was like, I just, I don't know what to do. I don't, he's like, the community is a very powerful thing. He's like, I don't really want to like piss people off and tarnish anything. He's like, well, what do you think about it? And I said, well, I think the best thing to do would, be talk to as many close people about it as you can, and just to get their advice and their opinions and their feelings on it, and so, I mean, he had planned on reaching out to Con. He and Con are obviously very, very close. So they had talked. And then kind of his next step was he just kind of asked all of the athletes here in Vegas that he works with. And he's like, what are your feelings? Would this piss you off? Because the last thing I want to do is create this amazing atmosphere that we've created. I don't want to like stir that up at all.
Right.
So he talked to them. I'm really proud of him because he didn't make the decision overnight. He really spent a lot of time to really talk to Ricky and get to know him, and spend, they had a lot of conversations. And then I have to say, what really won me over was Ricky has really no reason to like reach out to me or talk to me. Like there's no reason, but he did. And he, in that time that we were kind of like, do we take him on? Do we not take him on? In that time, like it was really nice for me to get to know him. And he really kind of like reached out the olive branch to me and took the time and the effort to like get to know me and our family dynamic and what's important to us. And Ben did also. And so over a course of probably was about 2 or 3 or 4 months before Justin actually made the decision, that, obviously the more we talked to him and the more we got to know him and all of that kind of stuff, and just kind of really wanting to help him lay out a good path as to how to go about doing this, because he kind of had his head in the sand. He's like, I don't even know where to start or how to start or where to begin. And I'm not good in front of people. And, so Justin was like, all right, well, if you're willing to do this and do it right and do it my way, he's like, I'll definitely, walk you through the path. And so it was just kind of a really nice introduction, getting to really know each other. Again, it was a relationship that developed over time. It wasn't anything that happened real fast. And so, so that was kind of how it all slowly transpired. And we just, built a friendship and trust over time. And, now I'm just excited to see, now that's done, right? Now like all of the past stuff, like to me, that's not interesting anymore. Now it's interesting is his, like he and Justin are going to meet in person for the first time at Dubai.
Yeah.
And I told Justin, I'm like, you and Ricky need to do a podcast with Clydesdale and friends about that and moving forward. So that was my idea. I'm going to take credit for that one. So I think after Dubai, no matter what the result is, I think that would be fun to just kind of hear how the two of them jive for the first time in person, working together, and what they want to achieve together moving forward. I think it could be very exciting. It's a fantastic.
That could be a big celebration too.
Could be.
A very celebratory interview.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm excited about now and moving forward, right? There's not
Yeah.
much use of living in the past anymore. What's done is done. Now we got to see, let's put our money where our mouths are, right? So
Yeah.
I'm very excited for this season. And he's going to come to Vegas, I think after Wadapalooza, for a little bit to train with the crew and stuff. So I'm looking forward to meeting him too. It's going to be a big competition to see who Ivy's favorite Australian is, though. Maybe that's gonna be
Right.
Tom or Ricky.
I think
Gonna
Con
be
has a
tough one.
good head start.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. True.
Um,
That's true.
So did Justin bringing on additional coaches assist in being able to bring on a Ricky? Because he has so many athletes now, and you don't want to like dilute yourself so much that you lose effectiveness, right?
Right. The decision with Ricky, I mean, I feel like it's really been going on now a long time. And so the decision with Ricky really kind of happened way before, Underdogs were just kind of taking step by step, and fortunately it's like growing at like a very nice manageable pace right now, which is fantastic. So the whole adding on coaches happened in response to how Underdog's growth was, not really with Ricky, because the Ricky thing was kind of happening. That was all kind of into play well before we were thinking about bringing on extra coaches.
The reason I ask is before we went on air, you were saying that Con is thinking about is training full time with the crew. And then you bring Ricky on, and Allison Scuds is on since last year. The actual one-on-one coaching piece of this has grown so much, probably more exponentially than the actual Underdogs programming and athletics.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that, I mean, it's really great having all of the athletes here in one spot. But there are still a lot of like individual weaknesses that need to be tackled and stuff too. So, yeah, Justin's got a lot on his plate for sure. Like with the programming, he likes to have at least the majority of them do WODs together, do the Metcons together, just because it really helps them push each other. Like right now, this week it's a little crazy with the Zalos games as well as the Wadapalooza qualifier. So there's some people doing them, there's some people not, but he's got some people doing the workouts with them anyway, because it'll help push them harder for the actual qualifier, so it's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of people to strategize for. But what I'm grateful for is it's just such an unbelievable supportive group of people that, I don't really feel like any of them feel like, oh, I'm the middle child and I'm not getting any attention. Like, they all know they can come over for delicious steak on the Traeger and, talk about a shoulder injury or the fact that their deadlifts did not go well today anytime they want. So I think Justin does an incredible job of balancing the ebbs and flows of emotions that they all have here and there. And I really do feel like all of them feel like they're in a great environment that's only helping each other. And I don't feel like any of them are feeling like they're getting like forgotten or, and that's testament to Justin, because he really he balances it unbelievably well. I like to say
with the grid,
lowest maintenance woman that he deals with, but that's not true. Carrie is the easiest by far.
That's funny. I feel like with his experience in grid too, I mean, he's used to having a stable of athletes that he needs to attend to and care for. So this is no different than that really in that regard, and that they're just not all competing, at the same time for the same goal.
Yep.
So we're up on the hour. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to say, as my last little question, right? You have a theater background. That's what you started in. Somehow that morphed into personal training, which morphed into gym ownership, which then morphed into financial planning of some sort. You've moved from Wisconsin to New York City to Las Vegas, all very different locales to live in. What's the future?
Well, you know what? For a long time, I always thought, why did I get a theater degree? Like, it's completely useless. And now it's like everything is a show. politics are a show. Everything is some kind of show, right? Like reality TV. And now I'm kind of like, wow, that was the best base education I could have gotten. The reason I got into theater was because it's funny. The thing I hated about theater the most was curtain call. I hated it. I hated it. And we had to do it. And it was always, to me, the 99% of the performers, like that's what they loved the most, was getting up, bowing, having people clap for them. I always felt it was totally unfair because there were so many other people that made the production, like the stage crew, the lighting crew, the sound crew, the directors, the orchestra. Like there were so many other moving parts. And I'm like, they're not standing up here bowing in front of people. And the reason I got into theater was because I just wanted, like, through my acting, I just wanted people to feel and challenge themselves to like love a little bit harder or be a little bit of a better person. And I found that, in a lot of the shows that I did, there were not the best habits that were going on around me. Just like with, the drinking and the out late and, the classic leading guy cheating on his wife with the chorus girl. And I just hated that. It just, to me, like I might have impacted audiences, but it was hard to ever feel like I was really making a difference. And so when I got into fitness, it was like my stage changed. And getting up in front of people in classes, it really tied me directly to people and directly to the community of people. Cause like in a theater, you can't see their faces. It's, you're on stage and the lights are on you. In a gym, you're seeing the impact that you're making on people's lives. And really, again, our motto, change your fitness, change your life. I can't tell you how many people's lives that we've changed over the years of owning Dynamics in some capacity. And it was incredible. And then I think like, when we moved out here, and when your kids are young, you do feel like you're losing a part of yourself a little bit, right? And so I think when this whole financial thing happened for me, it just created another spark of, oh, I'm not dead. I'm still in there somewhere, and again, when I boiled it back down to the basis of like who I am and what fuels me and what energizes me, it's helping people. And so like, no, we don't have a gym quite yet, but we will. And when we do, again, it's just going to be another stage to be able to actually actively help people, whether that's postpartum moms, whether that's general fitness, whether that's elite athletes, whether that's athlete camps of people who wanting to become athlete camps, or, fitness, or I'm sorry, finances, if I can point them in the right direction of like how to change their future with finances, then amazing, and I think having so many of these young athletes in, it's like, even if you can just put $500 a month regularly away, if you're not using it, don't look at it and just put it away, because there's going to be a day where you're going to have kids or you're going to want to stop and be like, you know what? I want to relax a little bit and really enjoy this time with my children. And I'm so, proud of the life that we've created for our kids, because anytime things do get a little bit too busy and crazy, I still pull back. Like, yesterday we just had a nice little fall family day where we went and saw the pretty leaves at the Bellagio. And, you just take the small moments because they end up being the big ones.
Awesome.
And to help people be able to get there is awesome.
You are one fascinating person. And I think what's really remarkable is that you and Justin both come from a music background, and neither one of you really do it now. It's more the fitness thing.
Maybe we'll have karaoke nights at the new gym.
There you go. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Ashley. You're awesome. Thank you for jumping on with us and telling your story.
Thank you so much for having
me.
Enjoy
your extra hours of quiet.
Yes. Thank you.
And say hi to our sponsored athlete.
I shall.
Thanks, Ashley.
Bye-bye, guys.